She never chases validation. Let's talk about something most people don't want to admit. The quiet craving for validation. It's that subtle itch to be noticed, liked, seen, and approved of. For many women, it starts small. Maybe it's waiting for that text back. Maybe it's posting a photo and refreshing the screen. Maybe it's replaying a conversation, wondering, did I sound enough? Was I too much? And little by little, that craving turns into a pattern. A pattern where your peace depends on someone else's response. But a high-value woman doesn't play that game. She doesn't chase validation because she understands what it really is, a short-term hit of reassurance that always fades. And every time you chase that feeling, you trade a piece of your power for temporary comfort. When a man gives you attention, it feels good. Of course it does. But attention is not affection, and affection is not validation. Attention can come from anyone. Affection can come from someone's momentary mood, but validation, true validation, that only comes from you, from knowing who you are even when nobody's clapping for you, from trusting your worth even when no one's texting you back. See, the high-value woman knows this truth. Silence doesn't mean rejection. Sometimes silence is just space for you to remember that your value doesn't vanish when it's not being noticed. When she wakes up in the morning, she doesn't check her phone first thing to see if he messaged. She checks in with herself. How does she feel? What does she need today? Because her energy sets the tone for her day, not someone else's attention. And this doesn't mean she's cold or detached. It means she's rooted. There's a big difference between needing connection and depending on it for identity. A high-value woman wants love, but she doesn't need validation to feel lovable. She enjoys compliments, but she doesn't depend on them to feel beautiful. She values being seen, but she doesn't lose herself trying to stay visible. Think about this for a second. Every time you chase validation, you're running away from yourself. You're saying, your opinion of me matters more than my belief in me. And that's how you end up exhausted, overthinking, overgiving, over-explaining. You keep trying to earn something that's supposed to be freely given: respect, attention, acknowledgement. But she doesn't run that race. She doesn't post her worth, she lives it. When she walks into a room, people feel her confidence, not because she's loud, not because she's showing off, but because she's present. You can't fake presence. It comes from knowing who you are when no one's watching. You know the difference between a woman who's chasing validation and a woman who's centered. One reacts, the other responds. The one who's chasing takes things personally, a slow reply, a vague tone, a distant day, and she starts spiraling. The one who's centered pauses, she breathes. She doesn't assume the worst because she's not searching for external proof of her worth. She already carries it. And here's the real shift. When you stop chasing validation, you stop attracting situations that require you to beg for it. You start noticing people who match your energy instead of draining it. You start hearing compliments as appreciation, not confirmation. And the biggest change, you start feeling peace in your own company. The high-value woman spends time alone not because she's antisocial, but because solitude is her mirror. That's where she refills her energy, refocuses her mind, and remembers who she is. She can love someone deeply, but she'll never depend on their attention to feel complete. That's her strength. That's her quiet confidence. You can tell when a woman knows her worth. She moves differently. She doesn't argue for attention. She doesn't chase closure. She doesn't compete with noise. She's not online trying to prove that she's happy. She is happy, and that energy speaks louder than any post ever could. You see, validation from others feels good, but validation from yourself feels like freedom. Because when you finally stop chasing, you start creating. You create moments that fulfill you, friendships that feed your soul, routines that keep you grounded. You stop performing and start being. And men notice that, not because she's trying to get their attention, but because peace is magnetic. A woman who's at ease with herself draws people in effortlessly. She doesn't have to demand respect. She embodies it. She doesn't seek compliments. She earns admiration just by how she carries herself. That's the quiet power of a high-value woman. She never chases validation because she's learned that the only opinion that can truly build or break her is the one she holds about herself. She knows that attention fades, trends fade, interest fades, but self-trust endures. And the moment she realized that, she stopped waiting for others to tell her who she is. She decided for herself. So she speaks less and observes more. She listens deeply, not because she's insecure, but because she's secure enough to not need to fill every silence. She dresses for herself, not for approval. She works on herself, not for applause. She creates peace within, not performance outside. And that's what makes her different. She doesn't need to chase validation, because she's already standing in it. She never lowers her standards. A high-value woman understands something most people never learn. Standards aren't demands, they're declarations. They're not rules she forces on others. They're reminders of what she deserves. When she says no to something beneath her, she's not being difficult, she's being disciplined. Because every time you lower your standards to make someone else comfortable, you teach them that your boundaries are negotiable. And once they learn that, respect begins to fade. When she sets her standards, she's not trying to test anyone, she's filtering. She's not waiting for someone to pass, she's waiting for someone who naturally aligns. A high-value woman doesn't say, "I'll take whatever I can get." She says, "I'll wait for what matches my energy." And that mindset changes everything. There's this quiet strength in a woman who refuses to settle, not because she thinks she's perfect, but because she knows her peace is worth protecting. When she's in a relationship, she doesn't stay for potential. She doesn't hold on hoping someone will finally rise to the version she imagined. She looks at what's real, what's present, what's consistent, and if that doesn't meet her values, she steps back. No drama, no explanation, just distance. Lowering your standards doesn't make you easier to love, it just makes you easier to use. And she knows that. That's why she doesn't shrink herself to fit someone else's comfort zone. She doesn't silence her opinions to keep the peace. She doesn't pretend she's okay when she's not. She's honest, direct, and grounded, and that honesty becomes her filter for real connection. She understands that a man who truly values her will never be intimidated by her standards. In fact, he'll respect them. Because her boundaries don't push good people away, they push unready people out of the way. The right man won't call her demanding, he'll call her inspiring. He won't tell her to calm down, he'll say, "I respect that." She's not arrogant for knowing what she wants. She's not cold for refusing what doesn't align. That's confidence, not the loud kind that needs to be seen, but the quiet kind that doesn't need to explain itself. And let's be honest, it's not easy to hold standards in a world that rewards shortcuts. When everyone says, "just compromise," when friends tell her you're expecting too much, when loneliness whispers, "just settle," she still holds her ground. Because she knows what happens when you give up your boundaries for company. You end up lonely in someone's presence. There's something powerful about a woman who can walk away from almost right. She knows almost always costs too much, almost respected, almost loved, almost prioritized, almost chosen. Those almost drain your energy because they keep you half fulfilled. She wants wholeness, not almosts. She's learned that lowering her standards doesn't create love, it creates confusion, it blurs lines, breaks trust, and builds resentment. Because deep down, every time you say yes when your heart says no, you feel that quiet betrayal inside you. And the more you do it, the less you recognize yourself. But she's done living like that. She's not afraid to eat alone at a table she set for herself. She's not afraid to wait, because patience to her is not punishment, it's preparation. Waiting isn't wasted time when you're becoming the kind of woman who attracts what she deserves. When she meets someone new, she observes how they treat her boundaries. She watches how they respond when she says no. Not because she's testing, but because she knows that's where respect reveals itself. Anyone can be charming when they're getting their way. The real test is how they behave when you stand firm. And here's the truth, men respect what they have to work for. Not in a manipulative way, but in a genuine sense. Effort earns appreciation. If you hand over all your energy without standards, it won't be valued. But when you protect your energy, when you move with purpose, you create space for mutual respect to grow. A high-value woman doesn't apologize for having expectations. She communicates them clearly, and then she watches actions, not promises. She's not impressed by words, she's impressed by consistency. Anyone can say the right thing, but she's watching who does the right thing when no one's watching. And this isn't about being rigid. She's flexible with circumstances, but never with principles. She can compromise on timing, but not on treatment. She can forgive mistakes, but not patterns. She can understand struggles, but not excuses. That's the difference between softness and self-sacrifice. When she loves deeply, but not blindly. She sees through charm, through sweet talk, through temporary effort. She's not addicted to potential anymore, because she's learned that potential is just a promise without proof. She values consistency more than chemistry, stability over sparks, respect over romance. And when she decides to let someone in, it's because that person has shown they understand what she stands for. She doesn't demand perfection, just presence. She doesn't expect luxury, just loyalty. She doesn't want to be worshipped, she wants to be understood. You can see it in her eyes. She's done shrinking. She's done apologizing for being too much, because she finally understands that being too much just means she's too real for people who prefer small talk over substance. She doesn't chase the thrill of being chosen, she builds the peace of being respected. And maybe that's the secret. The moment she stopped lowering her standards for love, love started rising to meet her. Because what she expects from others is what she first learned to give herself: honesty, respect, consistency, and peace. She doesn't beg for it anymore, she lives by it. She never tries to fix him. A high-value woman knows that love is not a project and a man is not a problem to solve. She's learned that trying to fix someone who doesn't want to change is like pouring your energy into a bucket full of holes. No matter how much you give, It never fills up. In the beginning, it might start from a good place. She sees his potential, his pain, the better version of him that even he can't see yet. She thinks, if I just love him enough, support him enough, stay patient enough, maybe he'll become that man. But over time, that kind of love starts to hurt more than it heals. You can't build a healthy relationship on potential. You can't rescue someone who's committed to staying broken. A high-value woman understands that emotional maturity can't be forced, it has to be chosen. She doesn't confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. She can care about someone deeply, but she won't carry what's not hers to hold. She's seen it before. The man who says he'll change, who cries, who promises, who paints pictures of a future he's not willing to build. And maybe for a while she believed it. Maybe she stayed hoping this time would be different. But one day she realized she's loving a version of him that doesn't exist yet. And that realization changes everything. When a woman keeps trying to fix a man, she slowly starts losing herself. She starts bending her boundaries, silencing her needs, walking on eggshells to keep him calm. She mistakes chaos for passion and excuses for effort. And little by little, her self-worth starts depending on his progress. If he's doing better, she feels worthy. If he's falling apart, she feels like she failed. That's the emotional trap, when your peace is tied to someone else's growth. A high-value woman has learned to separate empathy from responsibility. She can understand someone's pain without making it her job to heal it. She can listen without losing herself in the story. Because she knows this truth, the moment you start doing the work for someone else, you take away their reason to grow. She's not cold, she's conscious. She knows that real change only happens when someone is ready, not when someone else is trying. She's not here to fix, she's here to inspire. If he wants to grow, she'll walk beside him, but she will never drag him. Because dragging someone doesn't create progress, it creates resentment. When she meets a man, she doesn't just look at his charm or confidence, she watches his accountability. How does he handle mistakes? How does he speak about his past? Does he take responsibility or blame everyone else? Because she knows accountability is the foundation of emotional maturity. Without it, everything else collapses. She doesn't mistake trauma for depth. Just because someone's been through pain doesn't mean they've learned from it. There's a difference between a man who's healing and a man who's hiding behind his hurt. One takes responsibility, the other uses it as an excuse. And she knows which one she wants. At one point, maybe she was the fixer. Maybe she was the woman who believed that if she just loved harder, it would be enough. But experience taught her that love without boundaries becomes self-destruction. That's how she learned to love differently, not less, just wiser. Now, when she sees red flags, she doesn't paint them white. She doesn't call them faces. She doesn't say, it's just going through something. She pays attention, because love without awareness turns into blindness, and she's not blind anymore. She knows that trying to fix someone is often a reflection of her own need to feel needed. It's that deep, quiet desire to be the reason someone changes. But she's let that go. She doesn't need to prove her value by saving anyone. Her value exists whether he grows or not. When she loves, she leads by example. She doesn't lecture, she lives. She doesn't beg him to heal, she embodies healing. And the right man, the one who's ready, sees that and chooses to rise. Not because she forced him, but because her presence reminds him of who he could become. She doesn't build her connection on fixing, she builds it on growth. Mutual, consistent, intentional growth. She's not interested in being his teacher, his therapist, or his second mother. She's his partner, not his parent. She knows that in a healthy relationship, both people bring peace, not problems to solve. And here's something most people miss. When a woman stops trying to fix a man, she gives him the greatest chance to grow. Because it's in that space, that silence, that consequence, where accountability is born. You can't change in comfort, and you can't evolve without reflection. Her distance becomes his mirror. She's no longer drawn to brokenness disguised as mystery. She doesn't confuse drama with depth. She's attracted to emotional intelligence, consistency, and calm, because those are the qualities that last. She's not looking for someone to complete her, she's looking for someone to complement her peace. A high-value woman knows that real love doesn't ask her to shrink, sacrifice, or suffer. It doesn't demand her to lose herself in someone else's chaos. She doesn't take responsibility for fixing someone who's comfortable being broken. Because she's learned the kind of man who truly deserves her doesn't need her to save him. He's already doing the work himself. So when she sees the signs, the excuses, the blame, the resistance to growth, she doesn't argue. She doesn't explain. She doesn't try to convince. She simply steps back. Because she's not leaving him to punish him, she's leaving to protect her peace. She's done carrying the emotional weight of two people. And that decision doesn't come from anger, it comes from wisdom. She never competes for his attention. A high-value woman understands that love isn't a competition, and attention isn't a trophy to win. When she's in a relationship, she doesn't play games to be noticed, and she doesn't fight for space in someone's priorities. Because the moment you start competing for attention, You've already accepted that it's scarce, and real love doesn't make you chase what should come naturally. She's seen how that competition feels. The late night overthinking, the scrolling through social media to see who else he's following, the quiet insecurity that whispers, maybe if I do more, he'll finally choose me. It's exhausting, isn't it? Because it turns love into a performance and connection into a contest, and she refuses to live like that. A high-value woman knows that a man's attention is not a prize, it's a reflection of his character. If he can be distracted easily, if he flirts with everyone, if he keeps her guessing just to feel powerful, that's not charm, that's immaturity, and she doesn't beg immaturity to grow up. She lets it stay where it is. She doesn't compete with other women because she doesn't see them as rivals. She knows her worth is not reduced by someone else's presence. She doesn't compare her beauty, her body, her success, her personality to anyone else's because confidence can't exist in comparison. When she walks into a room, she's not trying to outshine, she's just being herself, fully, effortlessly, unapologetically. That's her power. And if a man makes her feel like she has to fight to be seen, she doesn't fight harder. She steps back. Because love should never feel like a battle to prove your place. She doesn't chase consistency, she observes it. She doesn't demand loyalty, she recognizes it in action. And if it's missing, she doesn't beg for it, she replaces it with distance. There's something deeply magnetic about a woman who doesn't compete. She's calm, she's centered. She knows that if he's easily swayed by distractions, then he's not her problem to fix, he's her reminder to refocus. Because the kind of man who's meant for her won't make her question her place. He'll make her feel secure in it. When she's with someone, she brings peace, not pressure. She gives without performing, loves without pretending, and listens without trying to impress. She knows her presence is enough. That's the difference between confidence and desperation. Desperation says, choose me so I can feel worthy. Confidence says, I already know I'm worthy, and I only stay where that's recognized. She's not afraid of other women's beauty or success because she's too focused on her own growth. She doesn't view relationships like a ranking system where she needs to prove she's the best choice. She knows that if a man can't see her value, she won't lower her worth to make him look again. She'll simply walk away. Because the truth is, a man who's truly invested won't create confusion. He won't make her wonder who she is to him. He won't flirt with others for attention or play games to keep her insecure. His focus will be clear, his energy steady, his intentions known. And that's the only kind of attention she entertains. The kind that brings peace, not anxiety. She understands that competing for attention always leads to losing something bigger, your self-respect. Once you start begging to be seen, you start shrinking to fit into places you were never meant to stay. You dim your light hoping it'll make someone look closer, but it never does. It only teaches them that they can ignore you without consequence. So she keeps her energy sacred. If he's distant, she doesn't chase. If he's unsure, she doesn't convince. If he's inconsistent, she doesn't beg for stability. Because attention without intention means nothing. She values presence more than promises, and effort more than excuses. When she loves, she doesn't try to be everything to someone. She just shows up as herself fully. And that's what makes her irreplaceable. The right man doesn't need her to compete for his focus. He gives it freely because he knows her attention is a gift too. That's why she moves differently. She's not threatened by silence because she knows she doesn't need noise to prove connection. She's not shaken by other people's presence because she knows her value isn't measured by comparison. And she's not afraid of losing someone who can't stay loyal because she'd rather lose a man than lose herself. She never apologizes for her success. A high-value woman walks with a quiet kind of confidence, not the loud, performative kind that demands attention, but the kind that simply is. She's built herself, piece by piece, through discipline, late nights, heartbreak, and growth. She's worked for her peace, earned her confidence, and cultivated her purpose. So when she stands tall in her achievements, she doesn't apologize for them. She's proud, not because she wants validation, but because she remembers what it took to get there. She's been in rooms where her confidence made others uncomfortable. She's seen the looks, heard the comments. She's too ambitious. She's intimidating. She should tone it down. But she doesn't shrink to fit anyone's fragile ego, because she knows that playing small just to make others feel big isn't kindness, it's self-betrayal. When she talks about her goals, she's not bragging, she's breathing. Her dreams are her oxygen. And she won't suffocate herself just to make others comfortable with mediocrity. She's learned that some people don't dislike her success. They dislike what her success reminds them of, their own complacency. She's been the woman who dimmed her light before. The one who laughed quietly instead of fully. The one who held back her ideas in meetings because she didn't want to seem too confident. The one who downplayed her wins so others wouldn't call her lucky. But she's done with that version of herself. Now she celebrates every victory, big or small, because she knows how hard it was to get here. She doesn't apologize for her ambition. Because ambition doesn't make her less feminine, it makes her fulfilled. She doesn't water down her intelligence to seem cute. She doesn't hide her leadership to seem easygoing. She's realized that a man who's truly secure won't be threatened by her power. He'll be inspired by it. A high-value woman doesn't want a partner who competes with her. She wants one who grows beside her. There's a quiet strength in a woman who owns her success without needing to justify it. She doesn't explain why she works hard. She doesn't defend her confidence. She doesn't apologize for earning more, knowing more, or becoming more. Because she understands, apologizing for your power only teaches people to expect your weakness. And still, she stays kind. Her strength doesn't come with arrogance. She celebrates others too. She claps for the women who are still building, who are still trying, who are still healing. Because her light doesn't dim anyone else's. It simply reminds others that they can shine too. She's not chasing status or validation. Her version of success isn't just money or fame. It's peace. It's freedom. It's being able to say no without guilt. It's waking up in alignment with her purpose. It's having options. It's walking away from what doesn't serve her without looking back. That's success to her, and she'll never apologize for building it. When she achieves something great, she doesn't hide it to make a man feel strong. She doesn't pretend she needs saving just to feed someone's ego. She can be soft and strong at the same time. She can lead in love. She can nurture and conquer. She's not either, she's both. And she refuses to live in a world that tells her she has to choose. She knows that confidence can be misunderstood. Some will call her arrogant. Some will say she's changed. But she knows the truth. She hasn't changed, she's evolved. And evolution is supposed to make people uncomfortable. You're not meant to be understood by everyone you outgrew. She's done apologizing for being the woman who walks differently. The one who has standards. The one who's selective about her energy. The one who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't settle. The one who shows up as her best self and expects the same in return. When she wins, she doesn't downplay it, she owns it. When she achieves something, she doesn't say, "It's no big deal." It is a big deal because she knows how many nights she spent doubting herself, how many times she almost quit, how many times she had to start over. Every success carries a story of resilience, and she wears that story proudly. The beauty of a high-value woman is that she doesn't seek permission to shine. She knows her worth isn't up for debate. If her success intimidates someone, that's not her problem to solve, it's theirs to reflect on. Because she's learned that the people who truly belong in her life don't feel threatened by her power, they feel motivated by it. She's not loud about her achievements, but her presence says it all. The way she speaks, the way she carries herself, the calmness in her tone, it all comes from a place of self-assurance. She doesn't need to prove anything. She's already enough. And that's why she'll never apologize for her success, because she's not sorry for becoming everything she once prayed she could be. She never stays where she's not respected. A high-value woman has learned one of the hardest lessons life can teach. Love means nothing without respect. You can have passion, chemistry, shared memories, but if respect is missing, everything else starts to crumble. She knows that the moment someone stops respecting her, the relationship isn't growing. It's decaying. And no matter how much she cares, she will not stay where her dignity is compromised. She's not the kind of woman who explodes or makes a scene when disrespected. She doesn't yell or beg to be treated better. She's calm, too calm for some people to handle. Because her silence isn't weakness, it's a decision. It's the moment she realizes she doesn't have to fight to be valued, she just has to leave. But it wasn't always like that. She's been the woman who gave too many chances. The one who believed that love could fix bad behavior. The one who stayed after broken promises, thinking, maybe he didn't mean it. Maybe he'll change. She tried reasoning, forgiving, understanding. But with time, she learned that repeated disrespect isn't a mistake, it's a message. And she started listening. When a man disrespects her, he's showing her how he truly feels about himself. Disrespect doesn't always look like shouting or name-calling. Sometimes it's subtle. The dismissive tone, the ignored boundaries, the forgotten promises, the way he stops showing up emotionally, but still expects her to stay. And she notices all of it, because she's not desperate for love anymore, she's discerning. A high-value woman knows that respect is not negotiable, it's the foundation. Without it, love turns into manipulation, affection turns into control, and communication turns into arguments. That's why she guards her boundaries like they're sacred, because they are. She doesn't explain them over and over. She states them once clearly, and then she watches what people do with them. That tells her everything. When she walks away, she doesn't do it out of anger. She does it out of clarity. She's seen what happens when you stay too long in places where you're not valued. Your self-worth starts to fade, your confidence starts to slip, and you begin to question your reality. You start asking yourself, am I overreacting? Am I expecting too much? No, you're not. You're just surrounded by someone who benefits from your silence. and she won't be silent anymore. She's done explaining basic respect. She's done being patient with people who confuse her kindness for weakness. She's done accepting apologies that come with repeated behavior. Because she knows that every time she forgives without change, she teaches them that her forgiveness is cheap. She doesn't seek revenge. She doesn't try to prove her worth after leaving. She simply lets her absence speak. Because when a high-value woman walks away, the silence that follows is deafening. It's not the kind of silence that begs for attention. It's the kind that reminds the other person of what they lost. Her energy, her presence, her calm, all gone. And that's when they realize respect was never optional. She's learned that not everyone deserves access to her peace. She's selective now, not because she's arrogant, but because she's healed. She knows that people who truly value her won't make her question her place in their life. They'll show it in how they speak to her, how they listen, how they keep their word. She doesn't need constant reassurance from the right person, because respect creates safety, and safety creates peace. She knows that staying in a place where she's not respected is the slowest way to lose herself. And she's worked too hard to rebuild her self-worth to let anyone take it away again. She remembers the nights she cried herself to sleep, wondering why love hurt so much. She remembers the moments she lost her voice trying to be understood. And she promised herself she'd never go back there, no matter how much she loves someone. It's not easy for her to walk away. She feels deeply. She loves with her whole heart. But she also knows that love without respect is just attachment, and attachment isn't the same as connection. She'd rather face the pain of letting go than the slow death of staying where she's unseen. That's real strength. That's self-respect in motion. And when she leaves, she doesn't broadcast it. She doesn't need to prove that she's strong. Her silence is proof enough, because it takes more power to walk away peacefully than to stay and argue for change that will never come. She doesn't chase closure anymore. She creates it by choosing herself. She's learned to stop explaining to people why she deserves respect. The right ones already know. The wrong ones will never understand until she's gone. So she saves her energy for those who match it. For people who speak with kindness, who keep their promises, who respect her time and her boundaries. Those are the people who get access to her peace. When she leaves, she doesn't hate anyone. She just finally loves herself enough to not stay. Because at this stage in her life, she's no longer impressed by potential, apologies, or promises. She's moved by consistency, effort, and respect. And she knows that walking away isn't losing. It's reclaiming everything she gave to the wrong place. The power of knowing your worth at the end of the day. Everything a high-value woman does and doesn't do comes down to one thing: self-respect. She doesn't move through life trying to prove her value to anyone. She already knows it. She's not trying to impress, to chase, or to fix someone who won't meet her halfway. She's learned that her peace, her time, and her energy are sacred, and she protects them like they are. Every boundary she sets, every silence she keeps, every time she walks away, it's not about pride, it's about peace. She's not heartless, she's healed. And healing has taught her that not everything deserves her reaction. Not everyone deserves her love. Not every situation deserves her effort. A high-value woman is not defined by her relationship status, by who she's dating, or by how many people approve of her. She's defined by how she treats herself when no one's watching. She's defined by her ability to stay kind without being naive, soft without being weak, loving without losing herself. The truth is, she didn't become this version of herself overnight. It took heartbreak. It took disappointment. It took realizing that being the nice girl, the understanding one, the patient one, doesn't always lead to happiness. It took watching herself give everything and get nothing back, until she decided to stop. Now, she loves differently, she listens differently, she moves differently. She doesn't chase energy that's not matched. She doesn't argue for attention. She doesn't beg for effort, because she knows what she brings to the table, and she's not afraid to eat alone. She knows that walking away isn't losing. It's creating space for better things to find her. It's protecting her energy so the right people can recognize it. And when they do, they'll meet her with the same respect, effort, and value she gives. Because high value attracts high value. So if you take anything from this, let it be this truth: never trade your self-respect for connection. Never let love make you forget your worth. You don't need to prove you're valuable. You just need to live like you are. Because when you start showing up as the woman who honors herself, the world around you begins to honor you too. That's the quiet, unshakable power of a high-value woman. She doesn't chase attention. She commands respect. She doesn't settle for less. She embodies more. And in a world that constantly tells women to do more, give more, prove more, she's the reminder that real power starts when you stop trying to earn love and start choosing yourself.